They didn't scream. They didn't run. They just stood there, watching the barn burn, the name still glowing in the wood, carved deep like someone meant it to last. June, not painted, not written, carved, with a knife. Then came the smoke, the kind that doesn't just choke your throat, it chokes your soul. No one moved. No one dared speak, because in Jericho Creek, you don't call out evil by name. You bury it, or you burn it. But Elias Boone wasn't like the rest. He stepped forward, calm as a thunderstorm about to break. And in front of the whole town, he said the one sentence that made half of them flinch. She don't sleep in there no more. She stays in the house now. Just like that, you could feel it, that moment when silence turns into judgment. When truth walks in wearing boots and dares anyone to stop it. But let me take you back. A few days before the blaze, the stage rolled in late. Wheels groaning like they'd carried more than just weight. Nobody was waiting. Nobody ever did anymore. And then she stepped off, barefoot, skin sunburned, dress torn and dusted red. A single strap dangled off her shoulder, exposing a bruise the color of wine. Her knees were scraped, her arms marked with what looked like fingernails. She didn't ask for help, didn't even look up, just placed her hand on the stage wheel, like it was the only thing keeping her from folding in half. That was June Whitlow, once the preacher's daughter. Now, a ghost with skin. Most folks turned away, but not Elias. He was watching from the forge, the sun casting long shadows at his feet. He didn't blink, didn't move, because sometimes a man doesn't need to see everything to know something's been done wrong. And before June disappeared into the doctor's house, she said a line that burned deeper than fire. Use me, break me, just move me. They say that was just a barn fire, but I swear to you something far worse caught flame that night. Elias didn't go to the doctor's house that day, didn't knock, didn't ask. But 3 nights later, he left a loaf of bread on the windowsill. No note, no sound, just bread wrapped in an old rag. And one more thing, something small, rolled into the cloth like a secret, a peach, bruised, soft. From his own tree out back. It wasn't much, but it was more than anyone else gave her. He turned to leave quiet, always quiet, but her voice caught him mid-step, not loud, not scared, just tired. You gonna take your turn? He froze. Isn't that why you brought it? She didn't open the window, didn't shout, just said it like she'd said it too many times before, to too many men who never brought bread. He left without a word, but the next morning, a red ribbon lay on his doorstep, not new, not fancy, just hers. From that day on, she sat on the stoop at dusk, never said much, never looked up right away. But Elias would nod once, just once, as he walked from forge to well and back again, and she'd sit there, like maybe silence was the safest thing she had left. One evening, after he handed her a tin cup of water, she finally asked, "Why don't you ask me what happened? He didn't stop hammering. Would you want to tell it?" She didn't answer, didn't need to. Sometimes not telling is the only way to stay upright. And that night, she left another ribbon, this time tied to the well, faded red, the kind little girls once wore when they believed in birthdays. They weren't friends, not yet, but there was something in the quiet between them, something that felt like it remembered who she used to be. By the 4th evening, June sat farther from the porch, not hiding, not inviting, just there. Close enough to hear the hammer from the forge, far enough to feel no one could claim her. She wasn't healing. Not yet. But she was showing up, showing, and sometimes that's all surviving looks like. Tess Raymond passed by that night, clacking heels, dress pulled tighter than the truth. She slowed just enough to let her words drip like sour milk. Girl like that shouldn't sit where decent folks pass. Ain't no dignity left in her bones. Elias heard it from the forge, didn't raise his head, but that hammer. It fell just a little harder than usual. Next morning, it got worse. 3 local boys, barely men. Mostly beer and spit lingered by the fence near June. They weren't loud at first, just laughing too much, leaning too close. One tossed an apple core. It landed by her foot with a dull thump. June didn't flinch, didn't look up. But the second one, he said something about broken toys being easy to borrow. The third just laughed and stepped closer, pretending to trip, fingers brushing the hem of her skirt like it was a joke. That's when Elias came around the corner. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just looked at them long, slow, and steady, like a man who'd been quiet too long and was now remembering he'd once fought wolves. The boys left, not running, but not walking proud either. And just when you think it'd end right there, it didn't. Something else was waiting quieter, softer, but it'd stick longer than a bruise. That night, June didn't sit out front, but when Elias checked the side step, he saw it. Another ribbon, tied to the fence post. This one had a small coin tucked inside the knot. Maybe a thank you, maybe something else. He didn't touch it. Just stood there, hand resting on the post long after the sun had gone. Some stories don't need big battles to burn. Sometimes it's in the look a man gives when no one else sees the fire starting. If you're still here, you're part of this now. This story ain't done, not even close. So if you want to see what happens when quiet men stop looking the other way, hit that subscribe button. We'll ride this out together. The next Sunday felt hotter than hell. June wore the same torn dress, not for show. It was all she had. She walked down to the general store alone, just 10 steps from the porch, but far enough for trouble to notice. Jack Puller was already there, one boot propped on the rail, chewing something that wasn't worth chewing. He saw her, grinned slow, started with the usual. "Miss Clay," he said, tipping an imaginary hat. June kept walking. Didn't answer. Didn't stop. That's when he moved. One hand gripped her arm. Hard. Pulled her halfway off her feet. "What's the rush, darling? Thought you liked attention." The slap echoed first, not hers, his, backhanded. Right across her face. June fell hard. Dust clouded around her. People gasped, but nobody moved. Not until Elias stepped from the blacksmith shop. Not walking, marching, like every step burned the ground beneath him. He didn't yell, didn't ask. He just hit him. One punch, square to the jaw. Jack dropped, but Elias didn't stop. He dragged him up by the shirt, shoved him into a post, and with a voice that didn't rise above a whisper, he said, "You touch her again, I'll bury your hand behind the barn." Jack bled from the lip, didn't argue, didn't joke, didn't even look back as he limped off. June didn't say anything that night, but Elias found her old ribbon on the forge table. Burned at one end, tied in a neat bow. He kept it in his back pocket. After that day, folks started talking again, not about her past, but about the man who stood for her like it was the only thing that still made sense the day after the fight. June didn't come out. No ribbons, no peaches, no quiet sitting by the porch. Elias didn't knock, didn't ask. But when the sun dropped low and the forge cooled down, he left a small plate by her door. 2 slices of cornbread, a boiled egg, and a folded napkin with her name written in the corner. Just one word, June. Next morning, the plate was gone, and in its place a single white button, not fancy, not new. But Elias smiled when he saw it, because that's how healings start. Not with fireworks, but with buttons and breakfast. That evening, she sat on the steps again. Closed this time, closer than ever before. He sat beside her, not saying a word. And then, just before the sun disappeared, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Not heavy, not desperate. Just there. He didn't move, didn't speak, but his hand rested gently over hers. And for the first time since she stepped off that stagecoach, June closed her eyes without flinching. There's something powerful in a quiet man who shows up. Something sacred in a woman who chooses to stay. Not every story needs a wedding or a kiss in the rain. Sometimes it just needs a porch, 2 worn boots, and a bit of peace no one else dared give. So here's the real question. What does it take for a broken person to feel whole again? Is it justice, kindness, or someone who doesn't look away when it hurts? If this story touched something in you, if you've ever carried more than you could explain, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more tales like this, raw, real, and made for hearts that don't quit easy. And tell me down in the comments, have you ever met someone like Elias, or maybe been someone like June?